Tragedy on the tracks as rescue workers search for survivors. Here in Washington, a terrible train derailment has ignited a fight over funding. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Chris Wallace in for Brett Baer. Investigators are combing through the wreckage of a devastating Amtrak train crash in Philadelphia. While on Capitol Hill, lawmakers are already pointing fingers over who could have prevented it. The crash Tuesday night killed 7 people and injured more than 200. Today, NTSB investigators said the train traveling from D.C. to New York was going over 100 miles an hour when it left the tracks. That's more than twice the speed limit on that stretch. Correspondent Peter Doocy joins us live now from Philadelphia with a look at the investigation and how the crash is already having a ripple effect here in Washington. Peter.
Chris, political finger-pointing generally doesn't happen the day after a deadly disaster, but that was the case today when the White House and lawmakers on the Hill argued about Amtrak funding while rescuers here in Philadelphia were pulling bodies from Train 188.
Last night's deadly Amtrak crash in Philadelphia puts in stark focus potential implications of slashing its funding drastically.
Would more taxpayer money have prevented the deadly derailment of Amtrak 188? Some Democrats think so, on Capitol Hill and at the White House.
Republicans, unfortunately, are currently considering legislation at the committee level that would actually cut funding from Amtrak's budget.
But by the time Ernest complained, those concerns were moot as Congress voted to cut the funding by a party line tally of 30-21 in the House Appropriations Committee, led by Republicans who decided not to vote based on the emotions of this awful day.
You have no idea what caused this accident, and to use that as a means of supporting the last amendment, support it if you want to. But don't use this tragedy in that way. It was beneath you.
These arguments about infrastructure and inquiries by investigators at the crash site happened simultaneously. But unlike politicians in D.C., the Amtrak engineer in control of the train is not talking, declining to provide a statement to investigators. That means we have no explanation for the startling discovery Train 188 was going 106 miles per hour. AP reviewed a video that shows the 662-foot-long train rocketing northward, more than double the 50-mile-per-hour speed limit for this curved part of the track, and much faster than the 70-mile-per-hour speed limit on the stretch of track before that. Was something wrong with the train, or did the engineer have a lead foot? Officials here have few facts and are trying to bring attention to the little good news they've seen.
It is incredible that so many people walked away from that scene last night. I saw people on this street behind us walking off of that train. And I don't know how that happened, but for the grace of God.
Companies and countries have been spending billions of dollars to figure out how to make trains go faster, but how much does it cost to make a train go slower? You know, the speed limit. Chris?
Peter Doocy reporting from Philadelphia. Peter, thank you for that. Just one day after Democrats blocked consideration of President Obama's trade deal, party infighting got personal. A Democratic senator is accusing the president of being sexist. Correspondent Kevin Corke has that story tonight from the White House.
What began as fierce in-party fighting over his request for fast-track trade authority unexpectedly devolved into a debate over whether the president has become sexist in chief. At issue, President Obama's comments in a Yahoo interview about Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, one of the most vocal critics of the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal.
The truth of the matter is that, Elizabeth is a politician like everybody else, and, she's got a voice that she wants to get out there. And I understand that. And on most issues, she and I deeply agree. On this one, though, her arguments don't stand the test of fact and scrutiny.
Critics said his tone was dismissive of Warren, who's wildly popular among the party's progressive left wing. The Hill newspaper cited National Organization for Women President Terry O'Neill as saying Obama's, quote, clear subtext is that the little lady just doesn't know what she's talking about. I think it was disrespectful. Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown also said he thought the president was disrespectful by, quote, referring to her as first name when he might not have done that for a male senator. The White House bristled at the suggestion of sexism.
There are a number of instances where the president has used the first name of a senator to reference them in public, both men and women, including multiple instances in which he's referred to Sherrod Brown as Sherrod in public setting. So I don't put a lot of stock in the argument, which is also why I believe that Senator Brown, given the opportunity to consider his remarks, will want to offer up an apology because he's a stand-up guy.
The president has used this strategy before, specifically calling out lawmakers who disagree with his agenda items and then slowly building coalitions around them. On Tuesday, he welcomed 10 Democratic senators to the White House, all of them now expected to back fast-track legislation. But what makes this trade battle so unusual is that it puts progressives at odds with the White House, and they, like the president, are unaccustomed to political friendly fire. Chris, I can update you on a story of high importance here at the White House. After trading offers throughout the night, we are told tonight that lawmakers have agreed to vote on a fast-track bill that obviously was blocked by the Democrats yesterday. That is a potential and huge victory for the White House. We'll keep an eye on it for you.
Meanwhile, Kevin, the Saudi delegation visited the White House today without King Salman. They're here, of course, for that Arab summit at Camp David. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, spot-on analysis there. He is not here. He did send the Crown Prince and the Deputy Crown Prince in his stead. And, Chris, that's still going to be celebrated by the White House. We've heard Josh Earnest report all week long how that feeds into the narrative of these guys are the guys that should be here to certainly talk about the actions that will be happening at the summit. But keep in mind, 4 of the 6 leaders that were invited will not be there at Camp David tomorrow.
Kevin Corke at a very busy White House. Kevin, thanks for all that. One American has been killed in an attack in Kabul, Afghanistan. The U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan confirmed the death but did not release the victim's name. Eyewitnesses say gunmen stormed a guest house during a party. They say several dozen more people are likely being held captive, including Americans. Still no sign of 6 U.S. Marines and 2 Nepalese soldiers whose helicopter is missing in Nepal. The chopper was delivering disaster aid following 2 major earthquakes in the country when it disappeared Tuesday. Crew aboard a nearby aircraft heard the pilot say something about a fuel problem. No sign of a crash has been found. Poor record keeping could be allowing criminals to slip through the cracks. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge tonight with a look at a report that says there's no way of knowing whether states are deporting immigrants who may be a security threat.
According to the Homeland Security Department's internal watchdog, despite a $21 billion investment, it's impossible to assess whether the Obama administration has made the deportation of criminals a priority because the department is not adequately tracking the data. The 22-page report investigated prosecutorial discretion. That's the ability of immigration agents to identify individuals as a security risk and deport them on an expedited basis. Republican Ron Johnson is the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee.
The main point is that the Department of Homeland Security is not collecting the data, the information they actually need to understand and produce good policy.
What makes the report stand out are interviews with immigration agents who said in many cases they can't access an individual's criminal history. Quote, as a result, aliens convicted of or wanted for a felony committed in their home country, but not convicted of a felony or significant misdemeanor in the United States, may not be identified as a DHS enforcement priority. The administration did not dispute the findings, but said Republicans are also to blame.
That we need to better prioritize our enforcement resources. Again, resources that were not augmented because Republicans in the House of Representatives blocked it.
Senator Johnson says this chart shows the number of unaccompanied children exploded from 10,000 in 2012 to more 50,000 last year after the Obama administration implemented DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
That was caused by U.S. policy, and that's something this administration doesn't want to really admit.
A senior Homeland Security official emphasized it's not a one-shot deal. There are many chances to deport someone built into the system. In a statement, a department spokesman said they are creating a more centralized database. Chris?
Catherine, thanks. A mixed day on Wall Street. The Dow dropped 8. The S&P 500 was down less than a fraction. NASDAQ gained 5.5. Up next, the GOP talking policy and Hillary Clinton keeping quiet as unrest mounts within her party. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 13 in Tucson with a grisly discovery, 5 bodies inside a home there. Right now, police are not releasing much information on the victims or how they died, but say this was not the first time they had been called to that home. Fox 5 in Atlanta with an Army veteran arrested for breaking into a car. He says he broke the window to save a dog left alone in the hot car. The owner, however, was not happy about the damage done to his car and insisted on pressing charges. The Desert Storm vet says despite the arrest, he'd do it all over again. And this is a live look at Tampa from Fox 13. The big story there tonight, 2 hearse drivers made a pit stop at a donut shop while transporting the body of a veteran to his funeral. A passerby spotted the hearse in the parking lot and sent pictures to a veterans group. After getting wind of the story, the funeral home says it fired the drivers. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.